It's super quiet. I mean, it's close now.
It's been years of me thinking about.
This is part of like a new monthly stream that I'm planning on doing, cause like, I mean, like before my like streaming habits were like pretty like all over the place, I guess. And now hopefully I'll be able to do that the last Sunday of every month, and everyone's gonna love it and stuff. Cause like, if I'm doing one stream at least every month, I mean, that's a win for me, I guess. Cause like ADHD. Follow my Twitter. I got oofed from Twitter, but like I made a new Twitter. Before we start off, I must say, shock of shocks, Bosch was right about everything. By that I mean he was right large majority of things regarding the Ukraine situation. Me personally, I was on Twitter, like at first I was just like, what's even like the point of speculating on like whether Russia's going to invade or what's going to happen with this shit. I mean, like, they're going to do what they're going to do it, whatever. Like, nobody's listening to you. Like, nobody in, like, the State Department of the U.S. or NATO or Ukraine or Russia, nobody's listening to you. So, like, now, of course, like, a lot of people on the online launch, including Hassan, were like, oh, Russia's not going to invade. Even I think, like, at one point on Twitter was like, I don't think Russia's going to invade because I think it was the Ukraine foreign minister, someone like that was like, yo, like, they're not gonna invade. Russia had by that point, like, amassed, like, their troops on the border for, like, I think, like, a week or two or something like that, something crazy. I was like, I mean, does it look like they're gonna invade? They're probably just gonna back off or something. They're probably using this as, like, a bargaining chip for, like, this Ukraine and NATO thing that they don't want to happen. Then, like, it became clear that they were definitely invading. They'd, like, breach ceasefire and, like, they were going in to Ukraine's territory. At that point, I was like, okay, well, clearly they're going in. But then, like, people on Twitter were like trying to like downplay it or say it wasn't happening, or like say like, yo, like it's not a big deal. They're Nazis or whatever, like some dumb shit like that. It's like fucking Russians. Don't have Nazis. You ever heard of Alexander Dugin? What the fuck? But it was really weird. Like the fact that like people were denying this at all was like, why? Some of them, I'm pretty sure they're like Russian, the infamous Russian trolls or whatever. They're like Russian bots. They're like just there to like spread Russian propaganda or whatever. I mean, like definitely people like Caleb Maupin, who I've talked about on directly underemployed of Russian government. One of the guys we're going to be talking about later on is a guy named Aaron Mate. We're going to be responding to some of the stuff that he's saying. He was saying on Jimmy Dore's show. Basically, anyone in like that gray zone-ish, tanky-ish like space, they were like trying to like obscure the reality of what was going on in the Russia-Ukraine situation. People were like saying, "Oh, World War III, everyone's gonna get nuked or whatever." Obviously, like they weren't gonna like send U.S. troops, so like because I'm pretty sure like America and Ukraine are not in a military alliance. Ukraine's not in NATO. They said they're not going to be part of NATO. Like the NATO talks thought they were going to be part of that. America didn't really want to give Putin the point of like, oh, Ukraine's never going to join NATO or whatever, because like even though they're not in NATO right now, they're like, oh well, you still want to preserve like the sanctity of the possibility of them being in NATO because they should have the right because they're a sovereign nation. Russia is an outside agitator, should not be like deciding the domestic and foreign policy of Ukraine. It's a different country, which is like somewhat fair point, just in isolation, I guess. Some people argue that if they said no, they're not gonna get into NATO, then Putin wouldn't have done this. I think that's bullshit. I think that, like Putin did this speech where he was like I think he did mention NATO at some point, but I think like before that he went on this tirade of like, yo, Lenin, he like created the polity of like Ukraine, which is like not, that sounds like some bullshit to me, because like knowing my anarchist history, I'm pretty sure Ukraine had its own national identity before any of that, and I'm pretty sure like it was trying to break off from the Russian Empire during the revolution, but whatever. Either way, those lands used to be part of the Russian Empire, which like Russian Empire, the idea of like this is not like a clearly imperialist action, sort of it's in the name, Russian Empire. I mean, like if you're running an empire, people are trying to leave the empire, which are like a different national group that's under the empire, that would be an act of imperialism, I'm pretty sure. just seems sort of the obvious thing to me. Another thing Putin mentioned is that they're Nazis, so we gotta fight the Nazis. So like, come on, man. We know like you have associations with Nazis and shit in your government too, so it's like, a lot of force have been spent on this Azov battalion shit. I think they fought in some parts of Ukraine, but people were trying to make it seem like that was the entire military, when in reality it's just like a small part of it. But anyways, then like they started like bombing Kiev and they started like trying to like basically, it looks like they're trying to take over the whole place really. That's when everyone dropped the whole pretext of like no invasion, or the invasion is they're just trying to like preserve the Luhansk fucking Donetsk regions or whatever that have the majority Russian speakers. By the way, I don't know like how that plays into the historical, like whether these lands were historically part of Ukraine. I don't know. I don't really care either. That doesn't justify an invasion that kills like fucking tons of people. You know what I mean? Like, what? So Russia can have more land and cities? It's fucking ridiculous. That's not an excuse at all. Not only is that irredentism, plain and simple, irredentism being like trying to restore the lands of an empire, it's an invasion of a sovereign country. There are very few good reasons to do that, and certainly not the reasons that Putin is given. This denazification shit, this historical, these lands used to belong to us, even the NATO thing, ridiculous. That's not a good reason to invade Ukraine. So fuck that. At this point, like, it's almost impossible to say that it is in a defensive move. The only person I've really seen be doing that are like people directly under the period of the Russian government. Anyone else is doing that. It's like, why? What point are you trying to prove here? Now, there have been people who have been like, there are some bad faith sort of arguments with regards to this, and some good faith arguments. So the bad faith version of this argument is somebody criticizes Russia and then the other person's like, lol, fucking Yemen and fucking Iraq, all of this shit, US does so many bad things. That's a ridiculous argument. That has anything to do with the situation. In fact, I thought like for a while that people have been way overestimating NATO's actual involvement in this. Russia's been the one aggressing throughout this whole thing. NATO really doesn't have much to do with this. What all Putin's been bringing up is like the possibility that like Ukraine could be part of NATO, and that's a bad thing. I think now he's trying to get them to like, okay, we'll stop, but you have to like completely disarm Ukraine, which is fucking even more ridiculous. The Berkowitz lands are still like basically being held by Russian special ops, really. They're basically Russian special ops pretending to be rebels in Eastern Ukraine. Like, it's pretty clear. All this stuff really started happening when they took the Crimea. That's definitely Ukraine's position. That I don't think they were really, for the most part, negotiating with the rebels directly. They're sort of negotiating with the Russian government. Russia has actually been doing a fairly bad job of like hiding the fact that they are not the ones, or they are the ones who are basically behind all of this stuff. If I can find it, I'll bring it up. But there's this one clip of like a Russian, I think it's like the Russian spy chief or whatever. No, it's the spy master, the little finger guy. He like made a mistake. He was like, we recognize the ability of like Donetsk and Luhansk to like become part of the Russian Federation, and then Putin was like, we weren't supposed to say that. Okay, we're supposed to say that we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the fact that they're independent. So they're independent, right? And he was like, oh yeah, sure, independent, totally independent.
Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю предложение.
Так и скажите, так, да или нет.
Да?
Сергей Евгеньевич.
Уважаемый Владимир Владимирович,
Говорите прямо.
согласился бы с предложением Николая Платоновича о том, что нашим, так сказать, западным партнерам можно дать последний. Мы должны принять то решение, о котором сегодня говорится.
Что значит, в противном случае вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
Нет, я...
Или признавать суверенитет их?
А я
Говорите прямо.
Я поддержу предложение о признании.
Поддержу или поддерживаю? Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю предложение.
Так и скажите, да или нет?
Да. Поддерживаю предложение о вхождении Донецкой и Луганской народных республик в состав Российской Федерации.
Да, мы об этом не говорим, мы этого не обсуждаем. Мы говорим о признании их независимости или нет.
Да. Я поддерживаю предложение о признании независимости.
Хорошо, пожалуйста, садитесь, спасибо. Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю предложение.
Так и скажите, да или нет?
Да.
Сергей Евгеньевич.
Должны принять то решение, о котором сегодня говорится.
Что значит? В противном случае вы предлагаете начать переговорный процесс?
Нет, я...
Или признавать суверенитет.
А я
говорите прямо.
Я поддержу предложение о признании.
Поддержу или поддерживаю? Говорите прямо, Сергей.
Поддерживаю предложение.
Так и скажите, да или нет?
Да. Поддерживаю предложение о вхождении Донецкой и Луганской народных республик в состав Российской Федерации.
Да, мы об этом не говорим, мы этого не обсуждаем. Мы говорим о признании их независимости или нет.
Я поддерживаю предложение о признании независимости.
Хорошо, пожалуйста, садитесь, спасибо.
But yeah, that's the current Russia-Ukraine situation. What you got is anti-Americoid tankoids whose entire political analysis is America bad in every situation. They have come down on the side of Russia in the situation, trying to pretend like somehow Ukraine was the aggressor. Ridiculous. I have to say this again. Ridiculous. It's absurd. The idea that Ukraine was the aggressor in this situation. Come on. Russia learns from the US, he's just sending peacekeeping troops. Yeah, basically. There's been a lot of things that have been taken directly from the US's playbook. And to an extent that is like so blatant, the only logical argument that he could be making is because America do it, I can do it too. Which is like, no. He literally tried to do the whole WMD shit, like Ukraine's gonna has WMD, so we gotta invade. The textbook Iraq fucking playbook. Which is like, it wasn't good the first time. Like, nobody is. I don't even think if the US tried to pull that shit again, that it would work. Much less you, Russia, and nah, it's not. Nah. I mean, like, the US only got away with that shit because nobody was gonna stop them. But like, there are many people who are gonna try to stop Russia on this. I don't know if it's gonna work, but I'm definitely gonna try. And the US shouldn't have gone away with that, just to be clear, but they did. And Putin's not gonna get away with that because, like, what do you think the US is like concerned about, like, hypocrisy burning? Nobody gives a shit. I don't give a shit. I'm a fucking communist. I don't care. It shouldn't happen in either case. But if I had to pick between it happening one of two times or it happening two of two times, I would stand firmly on the side of one of two times. You know, somebody said some shit in Russian. I can't read that. I'm gonna try. Чики-брики, сука, бред, Иван terrible, the I just said something that sounded vaguely Russian. That's not even Russian. I'm gonna try to pronounce. I'm gonna try to guess what that is, because I can't read Cyrillic either. So I'm gonna try to guess what the Cyrillic for that. How the Cyrillic for that is pronounced. Six Anyananyaka. Clearly. I mean, who could disagree with that? By the way, if anyone can teach me how to, like, stream like I'm not, like, fucking retarded or some shit, like, DM me on Discord. By the way, separate thing, DM me on Discord and teach me how to, like, stream, so how I can start the stream in a way that doesn't take like 1 hour, where I'm not confused at every fucking thing. I have problems at the beginning of every fucking stream because that's annoying. Speaking of that, though, I'm gonna do the Hassan rap thing that he used to do for the Discord. Fucking hop in the Discord. I don't remember how the rest of that went. I'm gonna try to come up with a rhyme for Discord. Okay. Hop in the Discord. Your mom's a whore. Got him. Google Translator Deep L. You expect me to fucking bring all of that shit into Google Translate? Like, unless he was like, yo, I got your IP address, I got your location, I'm gonna swat your house, like, and something tells me, probably not. I don't give a shit what this guy is saying. Cheeky breaky, I have no idea what this guy is saying. Isn't Cheeky breaky Ukrainian actually? Cause like Stalker was I was in Pripyat in Chernobyl, and that's Ukraine. So like, isn't Cheeky breaky like fucking Ukrainian? I don't know. Ukraine should become rudder for Russia. Do you support me or am I stupid? Yeah, you're stupid. Well, stupid or evil. I don't know. I don't know your personal situation at all, really. Ukraine should not be a part of Russia. Clearly, because they're already in, and they broke off from Russia. They already settled that. Ukraine was like one of the main, that was like the main place that was, even in the time of the formation of the Soviet Union, that was the main place where they were trying to break off. That was Ukraine. A large amount of Russians don't support this. Putin created a ban on protests. There were a lot of people in Russia, I think especially in like St. Petersburg, that were like really upset about the going to war thing, because, you know, there was not like, unlike, for example, in I don't think it was Georgia, I think it was Chechnya. Was it Chechnya or was it Azerbaijan? Was it some fucking Muslim place near Russia? They did a big propaganda campaign for that. That was largely successful. But with Ukraine, I don't even know if they were like planning on doing this the whole time, doing the whole full-scale invasion, or if they just started this. But they did not do good enough propaganda campaigns. Russians are kind of upset, or a lot of Russians are upset about this whole situation. And I'm very brave for coming out here and saying this. Nobody else has said this before. It's a completely unique take here. But I'm actually against war. Yeah, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. But unfortunately, I am against war, so I cannot condone these actions. Fuck Russia. And fuck Putin. It's a fascist. I mean, this is not the first time he's done this. He's done, like, expansionism to, like, keep himself in power. You know, hating various minority groups, oppressing minority groups. It's really fascism light. I mean, like, basically everything that fascists usually do, he does. He helped enable this whole oligarch situation. Pretty sure he exacerbated that problem. Leftists have always historically been against like wars, especially unnecessary wars of like fucking conquest and reclamation. So don't give me that. My ADHD is kind of acting out though, because like there was one thing, like I know that I like started on it and like I forgot to finish the thought. Oh yeah, now I remember. I went over like the bad faith version of America bad in this situation, which is like the good faith version is, okay, what Russia's doing to Ukraine is bad, but why don't we have the same energy for the imperialist projects of America with regards to places like Yemen, Libya, Somalia, blah blah blah. The thing is that point taken in regards to that, like people should have more outrage about that. I haven't like talked about it on. I've talked about it on Twitter, I'm pretty sure, but I haven't talked about it on stream here. But I think like a lot of people are probably just like with a lot of those situations, especially like the Yemeni situation. Like a lot of people have talked about it before, and they've just seen that that's not really made a difference. Whereas like the Ukraine thing, even though you can't really make a difference with that either way. That's more of a short-term thing. That's like an actual invasion that, you know, there's always like, I guess like exciting-ish updates. Of course makes for good television. In Yemen, it's just like, it is very dynamic on one hand, but on the other hand, like the way a lot of people, especially a lot of people on the left, tend to talk about it is just like in terms of genocide. So, which they probably should, but at the end of the day, it's like, there's only like so much you can talk about it, like, without like seeing much change with regards to that before you become discouraged. With the Ukraine situation, people I guess might think that they might be able to make a difference with regards to this because it's so new. But either way, like even if they don't make a difference again, like by the end of this, the Yemen situation and probably the Somali situation is still going to be going on. This invasion, it's going to go one way or the other, but it's not going to go. It's either not going to go for that long, or it's going to be like 2014, 2015, I think, where like people are upset about the Crimea situation and like the war in eastern Ukraine, but at the end of the day, like people eventually forgot about it and stopped talking about it. I don't think there was any really any time where people were talking about the Somali situation, the Yemen situation, other situations like that, and the same intensity of the Ukraine situation. And that I'm pretty sure is just because of like racism, discrimination against like people in like poor countries or whatever. Let me put it this way, like I'm probably not going to be talking about this Ukraine situation next month. Poland is blocking black people from Ukraine. Poland's racist. Why they did this with Syrians? Because simply they're not white. Oh yeah, I've heard about this. Like Poland was like blocking African Ukrainians from going into Poland because they wanted to let the Ukrainians in. Now I don't know if they've been doing this with like other minorities, like I don't know if they're like Muslims in Ukraine, that they're also doing this too, but there have definitely been reports of that happening to black people. Not good. You know, I really don't know what to say about it besides not good. Not good. I'd have to look it up, but I think like Poland's been run by some far-right people. It's sort of to be expected. Do I ever read comments, or did someone steal this video? What the fuck are you talking about, yo? Like, I didn't read your comment for like 1 minute. Yo, I was just talking, shut the fuck out. Sorry, I love you. So Russian billionaires have called for peace. So that might be a pretty important thing, because as many people know, the oligarchs kind of run Russia right now, or since the fall of the USSR, along with Putin, of course. And this has had pretty disastrous effects on the Russian economy. So I don't think like people like billionaires are gonna like that. At least in the short term, it's not gonna be good for them. Like people always say, like, I mean, especially on that side of the aisle, are gonna be like, are always like, oh, this fucking like there's a coup against the other guy in 2014, he's US backed or whatever, and here's Putin saying, oh yeah, the army should just overthrow Saten'S, why not? Like everything that Russia is doing, even more, it's like they're trying to distract from that by accusing everyone else of doing that. It's sort of ridiculous. What we can do is dunk on Jimmy Dore. Why not? I mean, who doesn't want to do that from time to time? You know what I mean? That's just a wholesome pastime, to be honest. Jimmy Dore is like associated with the gray zone, and they post cringe. They do in fact post cringe. I won't call them leftists. I think they're just like Russian bots or something. Cause like they're basically like the meme I was talking about. Like their whole foreign policy analysis is anything America does is bad. So here we have Aaron Mate, which is one of those guys on Jimmy Dore's show. And he's going to come here, they're going to talk about the Ukraine-Russia situation, and they're largely going to try to run events for Russia, and more importantly than that, find any way to attack America for this. Now, attacking America is fine, there's no reason to not attack America, but I think it sends a misleading situation where you're attacking America in this situation, where it has very little actual involvement besides like rhetoric.
And then the Minsk agreement that then the Ukrainian government ignored. So all those things...
Okay, first of all, I gotta stop in there. People have been talking about Minsk agreement a lot. I don't know that much about it, but from what I saw, the Minsk agreement, basically as soon as it was made, was a complete another shit show. It's not exactly clear, I guess, who broke the Minsk agreement first. Basically at every step of the way, the Russians have been the ones who have been breaking elements of the Minsk agreement in terms of like who's doing it more. One of the main parts of the Minsk agreement was that there's going to be a ceasefire, especially in certain regions. And that didn't work. Like for example, there was a battle in an airport, I think, in Donetsk or something like that, where the rebels wanted to took that airport, and that was basically almost immediately after the signing of the Minsk agreement. So it went belly up pretty fast. To portray it as, oh, well, the Ukrainian government just ignore that, from like 1 minute, 42 seconds into this 40-minute video that Jimmy Dore on some bullshit, because that ain't true. to portray it as just this one side, oh, Ukraine just decided to ignore that, that's clearly an ideologically motivated framing of that issue. That's not really how it went.
He is basically insured now, Crystal, as we'll be discussing throughout the entire show, a full-scale NATO deployment to the eastern flank. This is the greatest thing that could have ever happened to the U.S. defense.
That's not gonna happen.
I mean, there will now be...
But I gotta stop sorry there. That's not gonna happen. They're not gonna deploy to... NATO's not gonna deploy to eastern Ukraine. Oh, World War III. What the fuck? They're not dumb enough to do that shit.
Clearly, 100% the aggressor here is Putin and is Russia.
Okay, so that just, ignores the history of what's happening and it reveals that they don't know it. But, so why did the U.S.
I hate when people do this shit. Like, they just poison the well immediately, like, before they even, like, start. We're gonna get to this, especially, like, debate bro streamers. Like, before they even, like, start making any points, they immediately start with the, oh, well, this shows how you're a fucking uneducated swine, fucking dog shit, complete and utter dumbass, fucking, dumb fuck, not even worth talking to, subhuman piece of disgusting trend. Like, come on, man. I don't like that shit. That shit is so fucking dumb. As soon as I see someone doing that shit turns me to fuck off so fast. Like, I won't. Honestly, I assume that the person who's saying that is don't fucking that situation. I have to immediately agree with them if they're saying that shit. That's right. I start considering whether to agree with them or not, because I don't know, if you really have facts on your side, you shouldn't have to be using these rhetorical tricks of all your dumb fuck all, you don't know what you're talking about, fucking blah blah blah. Like, just say the facts and be done with it. No one's here to see you fucking grandstand jerk yourself off, right? Shut the fuck up.
Why were they silent about the attacks on Russia-speaking civilians in Donbass? Why haven't any of these questions
Wait, what?
Against an election?
Why are they doing what?
Feels that they
Let me start the shit over.
So why did the U.S. back a violent coup in Ukraine against an elected government? Why did you?
As far as I know, the evidence that there was actual U.S. involvement in that is disputed, but I don't know. I won't get into that. It's not. I don't really care. If they were involved, like there was also significant evidence that there was a genuine dislike of that guy. I mean, like, I'm not going to say it's good. It wouldn't be good if they were involved with that, but that would have absolutely no bearing on this group. Even if there was a coup, it's not even that same guy that was put in after that we're dealing with here. It's not the same guy. And the U.S. has minimal involvement in this current situation where Russia's invading Ukraine. That's just poisoning the wall. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything, really. Biden rejected Russian offers to keep Ukraine. Why don't they ever... That's another thing. Like, if someone's just, like, stating a bunch of stuff and not... At least, especially, like, on Twitter, where they could just, like, cite a source and they don't, that's a red flag. Keep Ukraine neutral? What the fuck does that mean? Keep Ukraine neutral? You think this is a proxy war? That's why, yeah, people keep trying to frame this like it's a proxy war. It's not a proxy war. Russia is just trying to get the land that they originally had under the Russian Empire. It's almost like he sabotaged his own point there, because like when he say that shit, and then instead of like bringing up the source, you bring on some fucking schizo post about fucking Kiev hiring Hunter Biden for $80,000 a month, referencing the Hunter Biden scandal. Yo, that's some serious, like, leftist internet bubble shit. Like, it doesn't even even seem like you're being serious about this shit. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything, bro? Like, you're gonna use that space to, like, cite a source or something instead of you're trying to get some dunk on Hunter Biden. It's ridiculous. Even if the U.S. did back a coup, that has nothing to do with taking over Crimean parts of eastern Ukraine. Because the other guy was virulently pro-Russian, so strongly suspected to just report directly to Moscow. Like, and many other states, that's how that are next to Russia. That's how it works. They're basically Russian puppets. And I think they're trying to make Ukraine that, and it didn't work out. But even if there was some kind of coup, U.S.-backed coup in Ukraine, you even listed it out. You're the one. You said that force is only legal if you're being invaded or being attacked or whatever. You listed like the scenarios, and none of those had to do with like some foreign power did a coup. It doesn't have any, so that's not a valid reason. It's not a valid reason to take over Crimea. It's not a valid reason to support rebels in Eastern Ukraine. What the fuck is Richard Wolff talking about? Its security threatened U.S. invading Afghanistan and Iraq far from U.S. borders. Yeah, but that wasn't good. Insecurity threatened Russia interface and extra Ukraine because yes, and similarities. Yeah, the differences and similarities. The main similarity in both those cases is they're both bad. They're not good. Okay? So I don't even know what context this was made in, but this seems like some dumb shit.
Genocides across the globe. And
Okay, is he just like reading tweets that agree with him? Who gives a fuck? It's some cope shit. Like what the fuck? Alright, let's go back to Aeronautic. Like, I think Kyle Kalinske is someone. I think definitely Kyle. But I might be misremembering, but almost certain it's Kyle Kalinske. Made like this argument, like, okay, what if Russia had like an alliance with like Latin American countries like Mexico to prevent like American aggression against Latin America? That'd be bad, right? And it'd be like, I mean, yeah, that would make the US uncomfortable, sure. Would it be bad? Not particularly. Would it justify a fucking invasion of Mexico?
And it's exactly what has happened. And so the U.S. has known the consequences of its policy ever since, but they've continued to pursue it. And the saddest part is, for all this talk about standing by Ukraine and caring about Ukraine.
Okay, why do you keep like acting as though Ukraine's going to join NATO? They've already been rejected from NATO, especially the defensive military alliance. That is not in any way a good reason to invade. It's not. It's not a good reason to support separatist groups. It's not a good reason to. Yeah, it's not a good reason to take over a part of their territory in Crimea and then try to do the same thing right now. It's not a good reason.